الفاتحة مع الصلوات اللهم صل على محمد. Euzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
My dear brothers and sisters, friends of my life, friends of my heart, I thank and praise Allah Ta'ala countless times that one more time we are all together in the presence of Allah, along with Him and with you. One more time in order to talk about Allah. One more time to talk about happiness and joy. One more time to talk about what's going on. My dear brothers and sisters, people are always in a certain condition, and this condition constantly changes. Sometimes the individual is sad, sometimes the individual is happy, sometimes neither sad nor happy. My dear brothers and sisters, to live is a blessing of Allah, and we need to value this blessing in the best way. And how can we do that? There is only one way, single way, and that is to live for Allah. Either people live for themselves, or sometimes they live for Allah. Those who are for Allah, they are the ones who value Allah first. Those who live for Allah, they are the ones who submit their spirits, physical bodies, souls, and free wills to Allah. Or at least they are the ones who work for that purpose. My dear brothers and sisters, if the individual has such a wish in their heart, in order to submit spirit, physical body, soul, and free will, each and every one of these refer to higher and higher and higher of a process. Your efforts on the path of Allah are always in order to fulfill these processes. They should be your purposes, my dear brothers and sisters. I love you all very much, and I want you all to be happy and joyous. Yet you are all at a different point of happiness and joy. Everybody gets whatever they work for, and that is directly from Allah. Then there is a question that you need to ask to yourself. The question is, what did I do for Allah today? Actually, every good thing that you do for other people is a good thing that you do for Allah. Because Allah Ta'ala wants you to be beneficial to other people. Allah Ta'ala wants you to make them happy. And that is exactly the measure of the happiness that Allah will give to you. How could you make someone happy at a what rate? That will be your happiness. That's why you have a great opportunity. If you try to make everyone happy, since you will be receiving exact amount of happiness directly from Allah, then you can come to a point that you're trying to make more people happy every day. My dear brothers and sisters, never forget, Allah Ta'ala wants you to be happy. For your happiness to take place, only possible through you making others happy. That is exactly the design of Allah.
insanlara en güzeli vermek sizin için bir
Therefore, giving the best to other people should be your duty and your joy.
niçin görev?
Why is it a duty?
Niçin zevk?
For their happiness. Why is it a joy?
Siz de mutlu olun.
Because you will be as happy as they are.
Ne kadar çok insana mutluluk verebilirsiniz.
Therefore, the more people you can make happy throughout a day, you will be happy within their total of happiness.
Başında sevmek var.
At the beginning of everything is to love.
İki ayrı kanat.
Two wings.
Sevmek,
To hate and to love.
birisi sevmek, birisi
One is to love and the other one is to hate.
sevgili kardeşlerim.
My dear brothers and sisters,
Nefret şeytanın size vermek istediği
hatred is what Satan wants you to have. That is his greatest purpose.
bırakmayacaktır.
And he's not going to leave it with hatred.
Zarar vermenizi de isteyecektir.
He's going to ask you to harm people as well.
İnsanlar
People are always at different levels.
şeytanın yanında olanlar
Those who are next to Satan
olup da 7 safhadan birine o anda
and those who are with Allah and at one of the 7 stages.
Allah'a ulaşmayı dileyenler,
Those who wish to reach Allah, those who took a pledge of allegiance to their murshid, those who rendered their spirits to Allah, those who submitted their physical bodies to Allah, those who submitted their souls to Allah. That's 5.
biz olanlar
Those who became muhlis ones, pure ones, 6. And those who also submitted their free wills to Allah.
grup oluşturuyor.
They make 7 groups, my dear brothers and sisters.
Allah'a
Which
ulaşmayı
people? They are the ones who wish to reach Allah.
7 tane safhanın içindedirler.
They are within 7 stages, one of those 7 stages.
Bunların hiçbirinde değil.
The others are none of these at the stages whatsoever. My dear brothers and sisters,
Öyle bir tuzak kurmuş ki
Satan had such a trap for people that
kuracak bir tuzak
such a trap to make them all forget about these 7 stages.
olduğunu
As Satan convinced Islamic world to accept 5 pillars of Islam and that to be enough.
yollarını kaybetmişler.
The others are already off the path.
Ama İslam alemi de sonunda
Yet at the end, Islamic world is off the path as well.
söyleyeyim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
İslam'ın 5 tane şartıyla
with 5 pillars of Islam, praying, fasting, giving alms, going pilgrimage and shahada,
hiç kimse paçasını
with these, nobody can be saved of hellfire. The only way of to be saved of hellfire
yolu tek bir kapıdan
is only through one gate,
bir yukarıya doğru açılan dehlizi gösterir.
and that is a path that goes upwards from that gate,
Ulaşmayı dilemek
and that is to make the wish to reach Allah.
ilk kapısı.
That is the first gate of salvation.
Allah'a ulaşmayı kalben dilerse
If the individual makes the wish to reach Allah from the heart, and of course Allah knows best if that is in the heart of the individual or not, and if the individual dies right after that,
kıyametten sonra gideceği yer
the place for that individual to go after the doomsday is absolutely heaven.
öldükten sonra gideceği yer onun durumuna denk bir hüviyet.
As the condition of that individual is at the first stage,
Allah'a ulaşmayı
the individual goes to first heaven. If anybody didn't wish to reach Allah, and if the individual died before wishing to reach Allah,
bu kişi için ne yazık ki kurtuluş söz konusu.
unfortunately there is no salvation for such an individual.
Cennete girebilenler Allah'a ulaşmayı
Those who can make the first level of heaven are those who wish to reach Allah.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
bir diğer ölçüsü
the other measure for heaven
sevaplarının
is
günahlarından
the individual's merits to be more than this sin.
endekstir.
That's the automatic system.
Kimin sevapları
whose merits are more than their sins, the place for them to go is heaven, and whose sins are more than their merits, the place for them to go is hell. My dear brothers and sisters, that's how simple it is in regards to mathematics. On the other hand, according to 7 stages, when we take a look from that perspective, if the individual made the wish to reach Allah and died right after that, the individual certainly goes to first heaven. The individual lives, takes a pledge of allegiance, his murshid, dies after that, he goes to second heaven. After taking a pledge of allegiance to a murshid, the individual fulfills the religious services, and pledge of allegiance certainly makes that individual fulfill all religious services simply because Allah takes charge. Whoever asks a murshid from Allah after wishing to reach Allah, and Allah shows a murshid to that individual, and that individual finds that murshid Allah showed and took a pledge of allegiance to him, as soon as he takes a pledge of allegiance and dies after that, he is entitled to second heaven. He didn't do anything. He wished to reach Allah and took a pledge of allegiance. He has all these sins previously committed. Well, Allah Ta'ala covers all those sins with the first wish. In other words, Allah Ta'ala makes that individual's merits to be more than sins, and therefore putting that individual to first heaven. If the individual lives, Allah will certainly put the urge of finding a murshid in the heart of the individual. The individual will perform necessity prayer, Salatul Hajj. The individual will certainly see the murshid and find that murshid and take a pledge of allegiance to him. If there is pledge of allegiance, the individual is entitled to second heaven. Along with pledge of allegiance, spirit will certainly leave the physical body. These are the cases that take place automatically. There is only one result. The individual who wishes to reach Allah is certainly entitled to first heaven. If he dies with that condition, he goes to first heaven. Individual who takes a pledge of allegiance is entitled to second heaven. Allah will deliver the spirit back to Himself and entitle the individual to third heaven. If we take a look at the concept from a different perspective, at the point where the individual is entitled to third heaven, the soul's heart of the individual has 51% of glories of Allah. In other words, the glories are more than the darknesses in the soul's heart. The spirit will be going through 7 of the heavens, will go through from first all the way to the 7th of the heavens. Within each and every one of these levels of heavens, he will be gaining more degrees from Allah. 7 times 7 virtues equals to 49%. As Allah sent 7% glories at every level of heavens, that makes 49%, and also 2% mercy initially. As soon as the individual makes the wish to reach Allah, before taking a pledge of allegiance, Allah gives 2% mercy in their heart. And then 7 times 7% virtues equals to 49, and the total is 51%. My dear brothers and sisters, friends of my life, friends of my heart, I thank and praise Allah Ta'ala countless times that
insanları kurtarmak için her zaman hazır.
He is always ready to save every individual.
İnsanın cehennemden kurtulabilmesi
Someone to be able to be saved of hellfire is possible through one single wish. If the individual says, Almighty,
sana
I'm willing to render my spirit back to you before death.
benim de ruhumu sana
Please,
bırakmamı
make my spirit return back to you.
emekte bana
Make that happen. Help me with that.
kişi bunu söylemese bile
Even the individual doesn't utter that.
dediği zaman Allah'ın yardımı mutlaka gelecektir.
As soon as he makes the wish, help of Allah will certainly come. Because Allah Ta'ala says,
Dilediğini dalalette bırakır.
Allah leaves whomever He wills in dalala, in darkness.
İnsanlardan
But amongst the people of dalala,
Allah'a
whomever wishes to reach Allah,
onları
Allah delivers them to Himself.
işte olay bu kadar açık.
That's how everything is so cut and clear.
Allah'a
The individual makes the wish to reach Allah, saying, Almighty Allah,
ulaştırmak
I'm willing to render my spirit back to you before death. If the individual makes that wish,
cehennemden
that individual is safe of hell.
mutlaka birinci kat cennete bu kişi girer.
That individual certainly makes the first heaven with that single wish, saying that, Almighty Allah, I'm willing to render my spirit back to you before death. And that takes place in two ways.
Ama
Either the individual utters that,
gerçek anlamda iç dünyası bir dileğin sahibi değildir.
yet the inner world of the individual is not wishing for that. Only the individual is uttering. The individual can never get to the
Ama
point.
eğer kalbi Allah'a ulaşmayı diliyor.
Yet if the heart has that wish and the individual will clearly feel that,
O zaman bu kişi Allah'a ulaşmayı dileyip ertesi gün ölse
then the individual makes that wish and dies the very same second, that individual certainly makes the first heaven.
eğer kişi yaşarsa
If the individual lives,
mürşit seviyesi.
then Allah will certainly put the love of murshid in his heart.
O zaman mürşidini ona
When he performs necessary prayer, Allah will show the murshid to the individual and make that individual love the murshid.
severek, isteyerek mürşidini
And that individual will reach the murshid willfully and take a pledge of allegiance to him. Along with pledge of allegiance, he will be entitled to second heaven right away.
bu tabiyetle birlikte ruhu vücudunu terk
Along with pledge of allegiance, spirit will leave the physical body and will join the group of spirits on their path to Allah.
kişinin o noktadan itibaren
From that point on,
düşen görevleri
the individual will certainly fulfill his religious services. Till the spirit returns back to Allah, he will willfully and lovingly fulfill religious services,
ile gerçekleşir.
as Allah will help with that.
Allah'a gerçekten ulaşmayı dileyen bir kişiyi
Individual who is
Allah'ın
truly wishing to reach Allah, Allah will certainly deliver that spirit back to himself.
vermesi
Therefore, Allah gives the love of murshid to that individual,
kendisi için seçtiğim
and the individual certainly takes a pledge of allegiance to the murshid that Allah picked for him.
ayrılan ruhu
Spirit that leaves the physical body goes through 7 of the heavens one at a time.
kalbin bu merdiven basamaklarındaki muhtevası
Within these stages, the condition of the heart will be changing. Imagine 7 stages: Emmare, Levvame, Mülhime, Mutmainne,
radiye
Radiye, Mardiye, and Teskiye.
7 tane
There are 7 levels.
nefsi emmare
Nefsi Emmare
kişinin henüz yeterli bir
is the commanding soul stage.
olmadığı,
The individual still doesn't have enough information. He is on an initial stage.
şerri emreden bir nefsin sahibidir.
The individual has a soul that commands the negative.
Bu kişi bu zamanda nefsi levvameye ulaşacaktır.
Then the individual would be at nefsi levvame.
Boyunca
Throughout nefsi emmare,
ikinci kata
his zikr will only get the spirit to the first of the heavens from the ground level. When the individual is at nefs-i levvame, in other words, the individual is condemning his own soul, he realizes that it is his soul not willing to fulfill the commands of Allah and willing to do what Allah prohibits. And since the individual realizing that the soul is still in charge and having him do wrong things and not to fulfill the commands of Allah, the individual is condemning his own soul. As long as the individual is condemning, he is getting closer to Allah at the same time and will get to Mulhime level, stage where Allah will start giving him inspirations. As long as the individual receives the inspiration, he is still entitled to third heaven. If he dies at this point, he is still entitled to second heaven after the doomsday. Then the individual will be at mutmainne level, which is the third stage. Because of the beautiful notions of Allah, the individual is in satisfaction. The individual's spirit is at the fourth of the heavens at this level. Radiya is the fifth stage. The individual is pleased with Allah. Mardiya is the sixth level, where Allah is also pleased with that individual. Then the seventh stage is nefs-i tezkiye, and that is where the soul is cleansed. In other words, the soul's heart has 51% of glories. Initially 2% rahmeh, mercy, gets into the heart. After the 2% mercy, virtues will start penetrating the heart. 7 times 7% virtues will accumulate in the soul's heart, which will equal to 49%. Along with 2% mercy, the soul's heart will have 51% of glories. All the way to this point is a gift of Allah, that is a blessing of Allah. With only one single wish, with the wish to reach Allah, the individual's spirit will go through 7 of the heavens. And the soul will be cleansed. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah Ta'ala grants that to everyone who wishes to reach Allah. That is a blessing of Allah. Whoever has a single wish, in other words, if the individual says, I'm wishing to render my spirit back to you before death, please make that happen with me. If that wish is from the heart, Allah will certainly deliver the spirit back to Himself. My dear brothers and sisters, I wonder if I can explain how much Allah Ta'ala loves every individual. It is Allah making all these happen. The individual only is wishing for reaching Allah, And Allah starts putting all other willings in the heart of the individual. And therefore the individual is going through emmare, levvame, mulhime, mutmainne, radiya, mardiya and tezkiye levels. And within these levels, spirit goes through one heaven level higher. And at the seventh of the heavens, spirit goes through 7 worlds. And after completing zikr in zikr cells, it reaches Allah from Sidratul Muntaha. It reaches Allah that is in Illin. Sidratul Muntaha is the beginning point that delivers to Illin. It is a tree. Sidra means a tree. Muntaha is the last point of existence. From that point on, the path takes the spirit to Allah that is beyond existence. My dear brothers and sisters, at what level are your efforts on the path of Allah? Based on the level of your efforts, the time frame will be either longer or shorter. Allah Ta'ala wants you all to be happy. Allah Ta'ala made human beings to be the closest creatures in the universe, blowing into them from His Spirit. Jinn also go through emmare, levvame, mulhime, mutmainne, radiya, mardiya and tezkiye levels. And their soul's heart receive glories of Allah. But my dear brothers and sisters, they do not have spirit. There is no spirit Allah blown into them. Therefore, there is no such case for them to deliver their spirits back to Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, in this regard, I need to mention that Allah loves everyone so much. Of course, that changes from person to person. There is a scale from those Allah loves the most to the ones that Allah loves the least. Yet, if we need to mention the outcome, amongst all the creatures that Allah created, Allah loves the human being the most. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, it's not enough how much we thank and praise Allah simply because we are not created any other creature but human being. In other words, we have a specialty, we have a privilege as Allah blown into human beings from His Spirit as soon as we are born. Yet, jinn do not have a spirit. And Satans are also from family of jinn, therefore they do not have spirits either. My dear brothers and sisters, therefore, since you are created as a human being, you need to thank and praise Allah tremendously.
boşa çıkarmamalısınız. Hedeflerinize ulaşmalısınız.
And you should take advantage of this opportunity and get to the final point. If the individual makes the wish to reach Allah, it is not that individual delivering the spirit back to Allah, it is Allah making that happen.
Mutlak geçerli olan Allah.
And that is an absolute promise of Allah.
İnsanları kurtarmak ister.
Allah is willing to save all people.
Kendi seçimlerini Allah'a ulaşmayı dilememek istikametinde kullanırlarsa,
Yet if people choose not to make the wish to reach Allah, then it is not possible for them to be saved of hellfire.
Allah'a ulaşmayı dilemeyen bir insan
Individual who is not wishing to reach Allah,
gerçekleştirmesi mümkün olmadığı cihetle
since that individual cannot go through cleansing of the soul, he will be always a victim to Satan,
gerçekleştirecek.
and he will always fulfill what Satan is asking from him, because the soul of that heart is full of vices.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
insan için çalışmasından başka bir şey yoktur diyor Allah.
Allah Ta'ala says there is nothing else for human beings but to work. What does that mean?
Mutlu, daha mutlu, daha mutlu.
Because for that individual to be happy, happier and the happiest
Allah'ın emirlerine riayet ederek
is only possible if the individual is obeying the commands of Allah and doing zikr
elindekileri
and eliminating vices of the soul's heart through that zikr.
sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah hepinizi seviyor.
Allah loves you all
Çünkü sizler Allah'ın yolundasınız.
because you're on the path of Allah.
İnsanları Allah'ın sevmesi birbirinden farklı.
Of course, Allah loves people in different levels,
Hayatına son derece uygun.
and that is only natural.
Allah Teala insanları aynı hüviyette yaratmamıştır.
Because Allah Ta'ala didn't create everyone in the same way.
Allah Teala tarafından
Everybody is created in a different design by Allah.
yolunda ilerlemek onların iradelerine bırakıldığı için
And since progress on the path of Allah left to their free will,
farklı
free wills that are different will be loved in different ways.
bu da insanlığın birbirinden farklılık özelliğine tam olarak uygundur.
And that is totally suitable since everybody is different than each other.
İnsanlara dikkatle bakın.
Doesn't matter where you are. Take a careful look at people.
Bunu göreceksiniz.
You will realize that they're all different.
Hepsi
All these millions of people, each and every one of them are different than each other.
farklılık gösterir.
Even the twins are different than each other.
Tam olarak birbirinin aynı olmazlar.
They are not exactly the same.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah Teala'nın en çok sevdiği mahluk olarak yaratılan biz insanlar,
as human beings who are most beloved creatures of Allah,
sevdiği mahluk olduğumuz
only in this aspect, as the most beloved creatures of Allah,
cihetle
we need to be very thankful and praiseful to Allah.
ne kadar mutlu olsalar azdır.
And therefore they should be very happy. My dear brothers and sisters, we are all created as a human being.
Yaratıkların kendisine ruh üfürülen tek boyutu.
In other words, the only creature that has blown a spirit into a human being.
Ama ruhu yok.
Animals have a soul but not a spirit.
Var.
Jinn have a soul but not a spirit.
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
My dear brothers and sisters,
Allah'ın size öğrettiği, sizin için vücuda getirdiği en büyük nimet
the greatest blessing that Allah created for you is the feeling of love.
çok kullanın.
Use that feeling all the time.
Çünkü sevmek sizi yüceltir.
Because love will exalt you. Hatred, on the other hand,
Sizi düşürür.
will diminish your level.
Nefretin sahibi olan insanlar mutlu olur.
Those who have hatred can never be happy.
Nefretin sahibi olan insanlar intikam almak ister.
Those who have hatred, they will be always asking for vengeance.
O zaman derecat kaybeder.
And when they fulfill that, they will lose degrees.
Öyleyse sevgili kardeşlerim,
Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters,
bunlar için Allah Teala'nın açtığı kapılara dikkatle bakın.
take a careful look at the doors that Allah opens for every individual.
Her geçen gün Allah Teala'nın sizleri bir hedefe doğru
You will understand every day that Allah is willing you to get to a point, and Allah will help you for you to get to that point if you wish.
sizsiniz.
You are going to make the decision.
Allah Teala'yı zikredeceksiniz.
With your own decision, you will do zikr of Allah, or again, with your own decision, you will not make a zikr of Allah.
Kararınızla Allah'ın emirlerini yerine getireceksiniz.
With your own decision, you will fulfill the commands of Allah, or with your decisions, you will not.
İşte bunlardan pozitif olanı seçip onu gerçekleştirmek konusunda hayatınızı
If you choose the positive one amongst these and you form your life around that
yaşarsanız hayatınızı,
and live according to that,
o zaman Allah'ın emirlerini daha üst seviyede, daha üst seviyede, daha üst seviyede gerçekleştireceksiniz.
then you will be fulfilling the commands of Allah at a higher and a higher level.
Bu gerçekleştirme hususu bir kamil mürşide varmadan olmaz.
This fulfillment cannot take place unless you find your religious guide.
Öyle söylüyor Yunus.
That's what Yunus says too.
Varmadan olmaz diyor.
You cannot do it without a kamil murshid.
Söylediği %100 doğru. Neden?
What he says is exactly right, simply because
Bu yapacağı seyri sülük isimli yolculuğun
for spirit to start to its seyr suluk, its journey towards Allah.
varmak üzere
In other words,
terk edebilir.
for the spirit to be able to leave your physical body to return back to Allah can only take place with your pledge of allegiance.
Kendi kendine
Nobody's spirit can return back to Allah on its own. It cannot leave the physical body to fulfill that.
bir anda vücudu terk eder.
Spirit may leave the physical body anytime it wishes.
Allah'a ulaşmak üzere vücudu terk
Therefore,
eder.
I indicated in order to return back to Allah.
Ruh dilediği an vücuda girer.
Spirit may return back to physical body anytime it wishes, and it leaves anytime it wishes. Nothing can stop that.
Neticede tamamen ayrılacak ve kendisini ruh edinen Allah'ın zatına,
But there is only one way to leave the physical body to return back to Allah, and that is through murshid.
Allah'a
It will move it with an infinite speed and return back to Allah at the end of the process.
ve insanın kendisine düşeni yapması,
Therefore, individual to fulfill his duty is a must.
Allah'ı seveceklerdir,
First, people will love Allah.
daha çok seveceklerdir,
They will love Allah more.
daha çok seveceklerdir,
They will fall in love with Allah.
Allah'a ulaşma dilekleri,
Then they will have a wish to reach Allah.
ulaşmayı dileyecekler.
And they will make that wish.
Mürşitlerini görmeden
And since the spirit cannot leave the physical body and starts to its journey without taking a pledge of allegiance to a murshid,
mutlaka bir mürşide tabi olmak
he will certainly have the wish to find a murshid and therefore perform a necessity prayer, Salatul Haja,
mürşitlerinin
and ask a murshid, religious guide from Allah.
ruhunu Allah'a ulaştırmayı dileyen bir insan
Individual who's truly willing to render the spirit back to Allah,
mürşidini göstermemesi mümkün.
Allah not to show a murshid to that individual is not a possibility.
İki, üçüncü,
Maybe not at the first time, but at the second or third
yatılan
necessity prayer.
uykudaki rüyada Allah Teala mutlaka
After the prayer in his dream, Allah will certainly show the murshid, religious guide to that individual.
yapması lazım gelen şey
What the individual needs to do is to take a pledge of allegiance to Him. At the time of pledge of allegiance, he will feel that peace and comfort. My dear brothers and sisters, friends of my life, friends of my heart, as you see, human being is not a creature that is alone. They always need the help of other human beings. Those who will get on the path, they will certainly perform necessity prayer and ask a murshid from Allah. They have to do that. And Allah will certainly show the murshid to them. Individual who is truly wishing to reach Allah, Allah will certainly deliver that spirit back to Himself. Allah has a promise. Whoever wishes to reach me, I deliver them to myself, says Allah Ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, friends of my life, friends of my heart, I love you all very, very much. May Allah bless you all.
Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu.
May infinite happiness be with you, my dear brothers and sisters.